Welcome to another episode of the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, the CEO of Cooper Financial Investments and the host. And as always, I want to welcome our amazing co-host, Tony Shore. How you doing today, Tony?
Me? Wow, what an introduction. That's
Yes,
awesome. Yes, it's great to be here with you, Brad. I've had a great week, by the way. I know you've been really busy, but it's
yes,
so exciting, our show today. I'm really into it. We're going to jump right in because what a huge get. I can't believe you managed to get this guest for our show today. But
yes.
Brad, tell our listeners and viewers out there who our special guest is.
Yes, we're going to talk today about Medicare and our special guest, which I am so excited, so privileged to have on. Her name is Leah Kari, and she's a local licensed insurance agent who focuses on Medicare eligibility with people and their insurance options. I've known Leah for several years now. Her previous life, she was a pharmaceutical rep for over 16 years before retiring, or I should say, semi retiring to the Tucson area. And she's been a licensed insurance agent for over 11 years. But one of the things I love about Leah before I let her chime in is when it comes to Medicare, and Tony, you know this too, because we've talked a little bit about this in past shows, the laws change every year. There is so many different options when it comes to making the right decision when it comes to Medicare. And normally you just have a short period of time to make those decisions. And without having an amazing, intelligent, knowledgeable person on this topic that's willing to sit down with you and discuss all your options, you know, this is what you have with Leah Kari. So, Leah, thank you for coming on our show today. And I'm really excited about a lot of the topics, questions that we get asked on a daily basis in our practice. And I'm sure you do too. But before we get started, why don't you let the viewers know a little bit more about why Medicare of all careers to get in, and why, did you go down that path?
Well, I have a bit of I hope it's an interesting story to our
Yes.
listeners today. When you're a pharmaceutical rep, it's such a pressure job that when I retired, I was still like the Energizer bunny with my motor racing, and I thought I had to be doing something. So I picked mystery shopping. And that sounds a little wacky, but with mystery shopping, you go to restaurants, you can work up to hotels and spas and
Wow.
cruises, and I thought it was great. Well, one day there was a shop to attend Medicare lectures. And I took the Medicare test, which is a test people like me have to take every year. I took the Medicare test and then found out that a very close friend of mine was actually presenting. I can't attend that one ethically. So I was laughing and telling about it. He said, "Why don't you get into Medicare insurance?" And I'm delighted I did. It's the right place for me.
And wow, so amazing, because I've had the privilege of sitting down with you and discussing Medicare and seeing you at work. And it's, the listeners out there, we often talk about investments, tax planning, and
Yeah.
other strategies. But when it comes to Medicare, there's a lot of different things to consider before making that decision, and where you go to for advice. And you probably have found that out in your career too, Leah, as far as there's a lot of competitors out there, right? And a lot of people do what you do, and I do as well.
A lot. It's a very busy platform, and it's made busier by the telephone banks. And I'm just going to be very candid about
Yeah.
this. When those ads started to come out that would have a celebrity talking about get this plan, get your transportation, get dentures, and all these other benefits, I can remember sitting there thinking, oh boy, I hope people are careful when they call, because those are telephone banks with people like me, licensed insurance agents on the phone. And more than one person has come to my door that got moved to a plan they didn't want because they didn't have enough information. So there's a real need for people to be able to have a conversation, many of them before they start to enroll in Medicare or pick a plan.
And that leads into probably one of the most common questions we get on a daily basis is, Leah, when can a person enroll in Medicare? Do they have to be a certain age? Or, is Tony old enough to qualify for Medicare yet?
What? Oh, Brad.
Well, since I see the bars on Tony's playpen, I'm not too worried about him right now.
Good answer, Leah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a big deal. I will tell
Yes.
you that this kid was so scared about enrolling in Medicare that actually I had someone offer, Leah, do you want me to be on the phone with you while you enroll? Yes, I wasn't doing this at that time. So you
Wait, you
enroll.
enrolled? What, did you get to enroll early? They let you enroll like 10, 15 years early
I
or
thought you had to
something?
be
How?
65, Leah. What's
Yeah.
up with that?
That's the first question. How old do you have to be to enroll? I thought you had to be 65.
You have to be 65. I'm really enjoying this. You have to be 65, but there are people that, by virtue of disability or some illness, are eligible for Medicare before age
Oh,
65.
okay.
And one of the delineations is if they've applied for Social Security disability income and they have received 24 payments. When the 25th payment comes, they get something extra in the mail. They're automatically enrolled in Medicare Part A and Part B. So it is not uncommon for somebody to be 25 and be on Medicare 40. And it's fortunately for most of the population, we are able to enroll at age 65, which is the normal time for enrollment.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in previous shows we talked about my beautiful wife of 33
Yes.
years, high school sweetheart 40 years ago, and she's been on dialysis for over 2 years now. And Leah, I don't know if you remember, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we were talking about Shelley, and you mentioned, wow, you don't have to be 65. Renal kidney failure, and who would have ever thought that? That was an option, which, that's something I learned after being in this industry for almost 30 years.
Yeah, I did not know that.
It's actually, I believe, after the 4th month of dialysis. So I don't know whether or not any case manager has been assisting Shelley with that information or not, but it's generally after the 4th month of
Right.
dialysis.
So, but for the average person, 65, and I know I'm getting closer and closer to 65 years
You're
of
nowhere
age,
near it.
and I know I don't look it. That's why I have a face for radio, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, with that said, a lot of people look forward to that because of the savings in many cases, but also there's so much to decide at that point. So walk our listeners through when they should start looking and researching and contacting a person like you, Leah, to start starting the process.
Honestly, it's never too early to start that search and make a phone call to a licensed insurance agent. Uh, because there are so many moving parts to enrollment. And if we don't pay attention or we listen to somebody at a coffee break and don't get all the right information, we're setting ourselves up for a significant penalty that's not going to go away if we don't handle the enrollment right. So I'm a proponent of it's never too early to discuss it, but technically 3 months before your birth month, you're eligible to enroll. So if your birth month is April, you're going to be enrolling online at socialsecurity.gov Jan 1 or Jan 2. It is, you can enroll 3 months prior, your actual birth month, or 3 months after that. And an interesting side note that some of your listeners may qualify for, if your birthday is the first of the month, Medicare has you start the month before. A little bit tricky, but
Wow.
we start enjoying the Medicare benefit, and truly it is to be enjoyed. People are coming from very costly insurance and are thrilled to benefit from a hard-won benefit they've paid into. So 3 months prior, birth month, 3 months after.
Wow. So a common question. A lot of workers today are not retiring at 65. They're,
Right.
maybe they love their jobs or they are forced to work, at an older
Yep.
age. So, what if you're 65 and you're still working and you're covered by your employer's coverage? What happens
That's a
there?
That is a great question, and it's very, very common. In fact, it's my verb. That's kind of what I see myself specializing in. So somebody's covered by their spouse's insurance or their own employer's insurance, and they're nearing Medicare. I've developed some questions for these people to ask HR, human resources, or their plan administrator so that they know exactly what is required of them as they near Medicare. In my case, I'm still on a retiree plan that
Wow.
my employer made available to me, but I was told I needed to enroll in Part A. Absolutely needed to. And if we don't enroll in Part A at the right time, we have to demonstrate that we've had insurance as good as what Medicare would offer us ever since we aged into Medicare. You may not have to apply for Part B. And I love that because if we don't have to apply for Part B, people are going to save at a minimum $174.70 for this year. That's the monthly premium. So, never too early to start to investigate. Call HR, get the questions answered, and then it's going to be a very smooth transition.
Yes. And one thing that you shared with me, Leah, which I love, don't you have a question sheet for human resources if you're still
Do.
working at age 65? And that's something Leah has gratefully offered all the listeners if you want a copy of that. And let's talk a little bit more about that question sheet. Pretty simple, just to take to HR, correct?
That's it. People just print it out, and the questions are there, and it's very basic. So, in other words, I'm ready for Medicare. My birth month is April. What do I need to do to stay on the policy I'm on right now? So that somebody like me is asking that of HR. They might say, "Ooh, you need to enroll in Part A and Part B," and on that one, we do not delay.
Right.
Um, the other questions would be, what happens if I don't want the employer insurance, but I want to come back to it? There are a lot of different situations that I've addressed there from the School of Hard Knocks and learning about what people have experienced so that you can avoid penalties, which some of the penalties will be with you for as long as you're alive, and they're not small. So a lot of things to cover in those questions, but they're easy to read. I just have people read them off word for word and fill in the answers.
No, that's great. And we're going to give our listeners the opportunity to request that here shortly. But, you know, you mentioned there's a cost, right, to Medicare? Didn't you mention
There
$174
and
per month
70 cents.
and 70 cents? Don't
I,
forget that.
a
Now,
lot of people think Medicare's free, though. I
right.
think we assume, hey, once I hit 65, I don't have to worry about healthcare costs again, right? That's what
You're
people think.
They most certainly do, Tony.
Yeah.
People will say, wait a minute, I thought Medicare was free. Well, Medicare Part A, the hospital benefit for those of us who worked 40 quarters or 10 years, and those 40 quarters can be broken up. It doesn't have to be consecutive. You've already paid Medicare taxes, and you are in the system without paying a monthly premium. Depending on the coverage you select, you might pay a deductible here or there, few and far between. But if you missed enrolling in Part A, as an example, a penalty would be 10% charged for 2 years for the
Wow.
period that, gee, Leah should have enrolled in Part A April 1, 2024. Yikes, I'm going to have that penalty for 2 years if I don't enroll in Part B on time. And Brad, to your point, that is something that is really emphasized on those question sheets. I'll pay a 10% penalty for as long as I'm on Part B. And Part B is the medical part: ambulances,
Right.
MRIs, outpatient doctor visits in the hospital. So, really important to pay attention.
Now, when you turn 65, and we talked about the $174.80, right, per month you have to pay, that's based on income, correct?
Actually, There is an
Oh,
income sliding scale. For
yes.
95% of us, we're going to pay. Medicare sets the rate every year in November.
Yes.
And for 2024, the premium each month is $174.70.
Okay.
If I had a particularly productive earning year, or
Yeah.
I had a legacy bequeathed to me and I cashed it in, Social Security is the face of Medicare. It
Right.
looks back 2 years onto your taxes. And if you had a very productive year and your income was, say, filing jointly over $206,000, you're going to pay an increase on your Part B. It goes up to 244.60 instead of 174.70. It's noticeable. What happens when our financial picture changes? There's a form with
Yeah.
instructions, very simple to fill out. And I'm going to tell you, Medicare is your friend. I had this situation and I got the reimbursement within 5 days. So I
Wow.
may be an anomaly here, but generally they do the right thing right for us.
I would agree with that. And we've talked about that too in the past as far as the surcharges. If you ever hear IRMA, which I know you're familiar with, IRMA, income related monthly Medicare adjustment. So that's the surcharge if you're a high income earner, or like you said, let's say, we're doing a lot of tax planning with the help of our
Yep.
CPA team, and you're converting IRAs to Roth IRAs. That's counted as income, and that will impact your cost on a monthly basis.
This is so important because it's almost we're broadsided when it
Right.
happens and it's holy cow, I just got my bill and it's not 174.70, Leah, it's
Right.
over $500.
Yeah.
Well, usually I can give people a huge pat on the back for being such a productive worker. Bless their
Right.
hearts to earn at that level. But it does go away. It may take a year, it
Yes.
may take 2 years, but there is an end in sight on that. But yes,
That's,
income related, modified, adjusted
uh, yes.
income.
That's why they call it IRMA, because I forget the parts of it often.
I
But let's talk
Aunt Irma.
IRMA. It sounds like a hurricane.
Good old Aunt Irma. Yeah.
That's right. What's the different parts, Leah, of Medicare? I know you mentioned hospital, but there's other parts too that, a lot of us may be confused with or don't know all the facts. If you could talk about those.
I sure can. Part A, the hospital benefit, is literally wherever there's a bed, inpatient hospital, skilled nursing, home health care, or hospice. Those are all Part A benefits.
Okay.
Then Part B, like baby, medical doctor services in all those settings that I just mentioned. Outside, labs, MRIs, physical therapy, durable medical equipment if somebody needs a brace or a prosthesis, ambulance. Those are all Part B benefits. And
Wow.
about once every 2 years, somebody will say, I'm not going to enroll in Part B. I'm just not going to. And one person I had to explain more than once how crucial it is to have Part A and Part B. You definitely won't be able to go into any other plans without them in place. Part C, what is that? Back to our ads on TV, the
Right.
Medicare Advantage plans that we see talked about so much, those are called Medicare Part C. They're HMOs, Health Maintenance Organization, and PPOs, Preferred Provider Organizations. And then Part D, easy to figure out. D is for drug. So
Okay.
long time ago, the government said everybody's got to have a drug plan or we're going to penalize them. So those are the four parts of Medicare.
Wow.
I was always told that C was for cookie. C is for cookie.
I
But I
like
relate
that better.
everything. But it turns out it's Medicare Advantage plans. Okay.
Well, a question, and I get on a regular basis, believe it or not, and you probably do too, Leah, is, well, Brad, as we're talking about financial planning and we bring up long-term care planning, over 75 to 80% of a married couple, one spouse or the other will end up needing either in-home health care or long-term care. And you wouldn't be surprised because you see it every day, but I was several years ago, how many people believe that Medicare will cover a nursing home?
That is a brilliant point to raise. That's huge because it is the predominance of people, or they'll think skilled nursing
Yes.
is long-term care. I can't stress it enough. I don't want your listeners to die at my age, but I am very interested in long-term care. I had a
Right.
policy years ago that I let lapse. I kick myself regularly for letting it lapse. That's a level of protection that I feel very strongly about. Right now, I'm not offering it, but I steer people to people that are, and it's an important consideration in anybody's financial plan.
That's right. So Medicare does not cover that. So what kind of plans, Lee, are out there, for the average person who's 65 or older, and really how they work? You hear about supplements, and you talked a little bit about supplements versus advantage plans. And there's so much confusion out there with all the ads and all the mail that you get
Yeah.
during Medicare season. And making that right decision is crucial and could be devastating if you make the wrong decision.
Well put. It's a real distinct fork in the road. We have Medicare supplement on one side of the fork in the road and Medicare Advantage on the other. And the biggest difference that I see it as is with a supplement, you're going to pay a premium every month to keep that safety net in place under you. And it's protection that requires no referral. I don't have to go to my primary care doctor and get a referral. There are fewer speed bumps in my way to getting care. I don't have to go to the plan and ask for permission to have an MRI or an outpatient surgery. My doctor just orders it, but I'm going to pay a monthly premium for that. And I have to add on a drug plan, or I risk a very modest monthly penalty, about 40 cents a month, but it adds up. So that's one side of the road. So 2 premiums to keep that safety net under me. And one other thing while we're on the fork in the road, the left side with Medicare supplement, one reason I am a proponent of that is your only question to any provider is, do you take Medicare? So if I want to go to, say, a thought-leading clinic or some institution that has done some cutting-edge research and work in a particular field, I can go on a supplement. I may not and most likely will not be able to go on the other side of the fork in the road, and that is Medicare Advantage. So what's the difference? Supplement, I'm going to pay a premium whether I use the plan or not. Medicare Advantage is very popular because I really only dip into my pocket when I use the plan. So it surprises many of us to find out that they are $0 monthly premiums for those plans to keep that safety net in place. I'll pay copays. I'll have rules to follow. But that is really the major difference. And on the right-hand side, I've got networks. If I stay in network, I'm sitting pretty. I'm going to pay attractive copays and I'm going to get the care I need. And these plans actually work well. People don't need to be gun shy of them. If I go out of network, if I'm on a health maintenance organization, even more rules than a preferred provider, I'm going to pay the bill, not the plan. So it pays to know the rules.
Yeah. And it used to be this way a few years ago, and you can maybe give us some clarity if it's still the case. But years ago, if you didn't have the right plan, whether it's a supplement versus an advantage plan, and let's say you're on a Caribbean cruise and just having the time of your life, medical emergency, was it true back then that some of these plans would not pay because they were out of network? Or is that just a myth that maybe has been out there as a scare tactic?
No, it's real. Medicare
Really?
Medicare doesn't cover us outside of the United States. So if I'm on a supplement, there'll be a structure in most of the plans
Okay.
that allow for foreign travel. It's modest. I don't recommend it. I'm an old airline girl too. I didn't mention that. 14 years with British Airways. If we
Wow.
can't afford the travel insurance, the Kari family, shouldn't be going.
Right.
But for Medicare Advantage, there is a lovely benefit in that the plans will cover you for emergency care or urgent care worldwide. So
Worldwide.
that's a very
And that's with the
little known fact.
supplemental or the advantage.
Advantage.
Okay.
Surprise.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good. I have a quick question going back to supplemental plans have a premium. Is that in addition to the whatever it is, $174 Medicare premium?
Brilliant question. Boy, do I hear that a lot. Thanks for bringing it up. You're paying both.
Yeah.
That
Okay. That's what I thought.
$174.70, you'll pay Medicare until you start to draw Social Security if you wait and not claim Social Security, say at age 65. So you'll pay in for Part B. There are
Sure.
two premiums. Yep, Part B and then the plan premium for a supplement.
But Advantage plan, do I also still pay that premium for Part B? Still?
No escaping it. You sure do.
Okay. Just wondering. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, hey, I know we're getting close to the end of the show, Tony, and I want to give our listeners the opportunity, to reach out to our office, but also I'm going to allow Leah to share her contact information too, because going back to that question sheet and other resources that Leah has, you definitely want to get your hands on. But, for more information on this topic, you can visit our website, financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com, or call us 888-390-5277. Again, that's toll free, 888-390-5277. But Leah, share your information with our listeners so they can reach you directly and take advantage of your wisdom and all the resources you have so they do not make the wrong decision.
I want to thank you for that opportunity. Leah, Leah, at Leah Kari, LeahKari, solutions.com is the way to get hold of me by email. And my phone, I'm going to give the listeners my cell phone because the other line that I usually use is a recorded line per Medicare requirements. So here's my cell phone, 520-484-3807. And like you, Brad, I am a zero pressure person. Yes. I'm here to help. I remember how scared I was before I started to do this, that I wouldn't mess up our insurance. And just know you're in a safe harbor with both Brad and with me.
Thank you.
All right. Great show. Thank you so much for being on the show, Leah. And Brad, again, great show. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.